Hi, Kelly. Welcome to the NTM Growth Marketing Podcast. I'm excited to be speaking with you today.
Hey, Andrew, it's nice to meet you and speak with you today as well.
So, as we dive in, a question that was on my mind is this: why did you decide to get into the marketing branding world in the first place?
Such a great question. I think it kind of starts with being rooted in psychology. I've always been fascinated with psychology and studying human behavior. And so much of what we do in marketing and branding is studying human behavior. So I kind of got fascinated with the idea of visually appealing to them, which is what led me to design. And then what eventually led me to doing brand strategy and collaborating with, CMOs and marketing professionals alike.
How did this eventually lead to build smart brands?
Little bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it brief. Like I said, started as a designer. I started my solo career essentially, maybe a year before I graduated college and just kind of started doing freelance work. And that kind of grew into a nice base of clientele that was strictly word of mouth, which that's the best kind of relationships to build. And that grew into actually owning a creative agency in New Orleans, which is where I'm from, where I had two business partners. We had 8 employees, this nice swanky office on Magazine Street. And, I thought I made it, right? It's like this traditional agency model was built and success was there. But I felt like something was missing, and I felt like there was more for me to explore in terms of the strategy world and again, that psychology piece. So I decided to actually close Rain Creative Co. was the name of that company, close that company, and then move out to Los Angeles, where I am now and officially start Build Smart Brands, which is more of a flexible business model, more of a partnership level type business model where I get to work really close with my clients and kind of flex in terms of building my team around just the talent that I know from over the years. Just insane talent and experience that I'm able to kind of tap into. So it's been a really fun evolution of what my role is in terms of design and brand and marketing.
In one of your first answers, I might be butchering the verbatim what you said, but it's something along the lines of you like understanding and observing people.
Mhm.
What is your favorite way of doing that? Is that social listening? Is it ChatGPT asking questions? Is it, being on the street doing focus groups? How do you like observing and learning about people?
Well, kind of funny. I mean, to start personally, I love just sitting in a coffee shop and watching people and how they interact. It's really entertaining just to see people and try to guess their I guess level of relationship. Like, is this a friend? Is this an intimate relationship? Is this a business relationship? So that kind of again is just my nerd out moment of psychology and studying human behavior. But when it comes to applying it to business. I do enjoy a good focus group. I think they can be hit and miss sometimes, but I think when they're done right, they can be
Mhm.
very beneficial. I also love doing surveys. Again, same thing. Surveys can be kind of hit and miss as well if you're not pulling the right group. But I do feel like those are quite effective as far as being able to apply customer feedback and kind
Mhm.
of make those changes. Um, I do rely on some search listening tools like answerthepublic.org is one that I've used a good bit just as far as like what people are searching and looking for online. And then always defaulting to social, right? Like
Mhm.
what's trending on social? What are some of the things in terms of, what content are people craving? So I really enjoy to kind of just poke around there.
I was listening to a podcast from Gary Vaynerchuk, if you're familiar with
Love
him.
it. I am.
And I believe it's one or two people on his staff whose job is literally to read Facebook comments all day, uh, or
Gosh,
Instagram comments, whatever platform it is, and just learn about, what are people saying about brands, products, all those things.
that's quite the job.
Yeah, I think my mind would explode from having to read those all day.
Same.
But getting back to your knowledge base, some questions I am really interested to hear. One of them is around some principles that guide your marketing strategy. Can you share that with us?
Sure. So I have three principles that I kind of follow. They apply both personally and professionally, as well as to my team. Authenticity is my leading value, hands down. I think that you have to, be who you say you are and show up as that person. And that to me is what builds trust and credibility for you going forward, right? In any relationship, whether again, personal or professional. I also believe in intentionality, in the fact that anything you do, it should be intentional and you should have a decision that's being made, not something that's just kind of flowing around.
Mhm.
So I do find that being intentional is very key to, again, the guiding principles of Build Smart Brands. And then also, I'm just providing value. I'm always looking for ways to provide value to the community. So I do a lot of writing. I have a lot of ebooks, and I really enjoy long form writing. Actually,
Mhm.
I'm working on a book that's going to be coming out beginning of next year. Hopefully, I'm editing it this year. So yeah, I like I said, valued first is kind of my model, authenticity, and then being intentional about anything that you put out.
Where did those values come from? Was that from a mentor of yours? Was that college? Was that parents? Where did they come from?
Oh gosh, I feel like we're all we're all kind of a amalgamation of our life experience, right? It's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly who and how I came about in that way. But I feel like, I was always that like weird kid, the art kid who, just hung out in her room and painted and colored and was very self-aware at a young age, and I think that that kind of helped me become more authentic. It's
Mhm.
not the right word. I'm saying it wrong.
Authentic.
Authentic, thank you. In the fact that like I always wanted to align with who I was,
Mhm.
in the sense that, again, it was me all the way from the start. So I feel like maybe my parents just helped nurture that in me. And then my clients certainly remind me pretty frequently how much they appreciate the fact that I'm very honest with them and I'm upfront, which again leads back to the real me.
You shared you have a few elements of marketing and branding that I think are fantastic, which is, this is your skill set you've honed over the years, but you also have experience managing what I heard was up to 8 employees. And so my question is very much in the managing of people side of things. What advice do you have of managing marketing creative talent?
Oh, that's another really great question. I think I'll kind of start with how I used to look at it and how it's evolved, right? I used to look at it as, I don't want to say I kind of err on the side of being controlling. That sounds awful, but I have very high expectations. And when, I originally was building my team, I made the mistake of putting those exact high expectations on them, which is just frankly impossible to fulfill. I wasn't nurturing them to be the best that they could be. I was wanting them to be the best that they could be in my company. And that's where I messed up. So I feel like in terms of that learning experience, I'm now looking at today's workforce in a much different way. And even how I was saying earlier, my business model is definitely focused on being very flexible, and autonomous. Honestly, I
Mhm.
give my team and my collaborators, I call them, a lot of agency to kind of be and do what they want when they want, as long as they don't miss deadlines. So I think it's about supporting and nurturing them in the goals that they have for themselves outside of just the work that they produce for you. And I think that's where, again, that switch happened for me, from back when I had my agency where there was 8 people, and now to where we are now, where I manage a decent sized group of collaborators.
Are any of them in Gen Z?
Yes, most of them.
What advice do you have on managing Gen Z talent?
Well, Gen Z talent does not want to be in the office. They don't want
Mhm.
to have a 9 to 5. They want to have flexibility. They love travel. They want to have fun with what they do. They don't want to be micromanaged. And these are all things that I've kind of just picked up on in terms of working with them. So my first goal is to make sure that any project that we're working on, we find a way to make it exciting for them.
Mhm.
Whether it's, maybe they really love the research side of it, great. Go ahead and dive into the research side of it, and we'll partner you with another collaborator who can maybe execute, so that you don't feel like you're doing the whole thing and it's not something that you enjoy. I personally, as a designer over the years, loved doing logo design, but I really, really didn't like doing layout design. And the unfortunate part is like, okay, well, sometimes you have to do both, and that can get really taxing as far as on your creative talent and your interest in what you do.
Mhm.
So I never want them to lose that, and I always try to find ways to elevate the excitement and the interest, so that they stay more engaged.
I have a question on giving feedback to marketing talent. So I say this because, if I were to tell my tax accountant, why didn't you submit this form? You said you would. whatever it is, it feels a little bit more black and white,
Mhm.
versus sometimes design in particular might be subjective unless you really get into, the data conversion rates if it's that type of design. So, and I've experienced a lot of creative talents who take feedback very personal, with
Yeah.
the artwork. What advice do you have on having those feedback dialogues, which is an important part of being in the workforce?
Absolutely. And it is difficult because art is very subjective, right?
Mhm,
I think, it comes down to, of course, when you're in school, you learn some foundational design principles, right? Like there's just some things that naturally you strive to achieve in terms of white space balance and hierarchy in text and
mhm,
how you use images on the page. So there's some foundational things that I definitely start with whenever I am doing some type of critique. However, I also have to look at this person's style. So when I think about hiring them, does their style fit into one, the style that Build Smart Brands is known for?
mhm,
And also, does that person's style fit into the style of what we're trying to create for the client? I think that was also something that I was able to learn in having the traditional agency model, where the projects that we would take on, we had to fit the project to the talent that we had versus the talent being fit to the
mhm,
project. And now I have the opportunity to do that, right? Because now I can say, oh, well, this would be great for a motion graphics designer and an animator to work together and an illustrator to bring in. So these things can elevate the project
mhm,
that much more, which again creates a lot more freedom in that creative talent. And usually the critiques aren't that heavy in the sense of like what needs to be revised because they fit the project better. But overall, I think, it's really in how you give anyone feedback, right? It's
mhm.
it's it's just a relationship. So making sure that you're not speaking at them, making sure it's not something where they feel like they did something wrong, but you're helping them, you're mentoring them. I think that's more of the approach that I prefer to take.
What is a area of marketing you're excited about in 2024?
Well, it's funny 'cause it's excited and it's also a little scary. Um, I think, I would be a little remiss to say that AI isn't something that is very intriguing to me. I think that, of course, everybody's like, oh, it's coming from my job and all of that. I don't feel like that's the case. I think that AI is exciting because it's accessible and it creates access for us to be able to, work faster and smarter, which who doesn't really want that, right? It's like, who doesn't want to maximize their time?
Mhm,
And what I've found is in terms of like using things like Chat GPT or even Dolly, it helps illustrate ideas rapidly so that you can get to the actual creative part. So I
mhm,
don't think that, I mean, creativity is a foundational thing for humanity, right? AI will not replace that. I think we're still going to need to have people putting in prompts to give us the content. So I think in terms of what I'm excited about is to see how far we push that. And again, the part that makes it a little scary is, okay, well, how much are we going to settle in terms of the final product in what AI actually delivers for us, right? Are we going to continue to push it to the point of, human involvement as we go forward?
I was experimenting with Facebook's, I think they call it Llama, essentially their ChatGPT in the search bar. Have you experimented with that? It
I've
just
not.
released
I've
in a few days. So I'll see if I can get this image. So to your point of, I programmed it, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, to create a collage of me and my wife. And then I
okay.
don't know if you can see this
Oh
one
yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like, wait, we're not polyamorous. Is that a
yeah,
third person in there? And then like the face
definitely.
is all weird and it's like, that one. So, it's there, but at the same time, to your point, if you gave if you're being scoped out for a project to create a beautiful collage of a CEO and his wife, and then you had just like another woman in there and you sent it to them, like so that's to your point of it's there, but it's not all the way there.
Right, right. That would be funny. Be like, just kidding. But yeah, no, that's great.
So I have a few last questions, and the first one is going to be two-sided. So I'd love to hear from you about a marketing win you've experienced. So really brag on yourself, and on the flip side, share a marketing loss. I'm calling that in quotation marks, and what you learned through that experience.
Okay, this will be interesting, and probably something you don't want to hear as a marketing person. I have actually been very, very fortunate to have a full client book pretty much my entire career. I've never really had to do like a traditional marketing campaign, in the sense of like, okay, come and work with me and let's kind of go from
Mhm.
there. Again, very blessed, and I know that that is not the normal. Now, that's not to say that I don't, pursue selling ebooks and again, getting email addresses and wanting people to engage community wise. I think that to me is, really an interesting thing that I've started to dip my toe in now that I've really,
Mhm.
got into long form writing. So I think some wins for me is, how those efforts have actually led to things like speaking events or, podcast opportunities, just different ways for me to kind of position myself as a thought leader. So to me, that's a
Mhm.
win. As far as a loss, um, you know, I I think everyone has lost a bunch of money doing like Google ads incorrectly, let's say, because you don't necessarily know the exact process or you didn't hire the right person to do it or whatever, right? We've always lost a little bit of money here and there. So I think that to me is probably the biggest thing is to say like a financial loss in making the investment both in time and money to not necessarily see the return that you were maybe hoping for, or it didn't reach the right audience,
Mhm.
or you didn't set up the campaign right. So I know that might be kind of very basic examples, but that's what I got for wins and losses.
Was it literally a Google AdWords campaign?
Yeah.
No, I think that's very common
Sure.
of a Google AdWords campaign not working, or even Facebook. And there's a lot of reasons because maybe you have the targeting right, but then your back end funnel was wrong. The
Right.
targeting was off, but your funnel was okay, and it just economically didn't make sense. So that's a very common experience I've heard from people on the podcast of being off with that.
Yeah. And honestly, as a small business, I mean, anytime that you allocate any money to marketing, it's money that you could be spending elsewhere, right? I'm
Mhm.
a huge advocate for bringing, any money that I make, I'm usually putting it right back into the business outside of what my living expenses are, of course. But it's interesting to see how money fluctuates as you're investing in different types
Mhm.
of marketing initiatives.
So my last question today, and it goes back to what you had just shared around you've never had a true marketing
Mhm.
campaign to bring in new clients and solicit business. And I hear from that you have a great brand through the word of mouth and referrals. So what advice do you have from someone on creating that solid brand? So really the marketing takes care of itself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think, what I've heard from consistently from my clients, because again, it's all about feedback, right? I can sit here and tell you that I think my brand is great, but, having my clients come back to me and say that I helped them see the vision for their business that they couldn't see, or I was able to make the experience super easy for them, where they felt like it was, working with a friend. I'm very much a partner level relationship builder when it comes
Mhm.
to how I approach projects. And, I don't nickel and dime people. I don't, I get the project done. I give it my 100%. I expect the same from my team. And I just always want to see my customers or my clients succeed. And I think putting their success first, naturally, they want to stay working with me.
Mhm.
So part of why I feel like I have been blessed is because not just the word of mouth piece, but it's also the fact that they've stayed with me for so long. A lot
Mhm.
of my clients in the fractional CBO position that I typically hold are 3 and 4 years in the making, while other clients that even I do projects for to this day, I met 12 years ago. I just finished working on a project with someone that was like, "Hey, are you still doing this? I'd love to work with you again," and that's awesome because they remembered me.
Mhm.
So I do think that it's important to be caring and kind to people, put their success first. And again, that's part of the value first model that I operate on. And then just be you, be you. And hopefully I should rephrase that and say, be the best version of you,
Mhm.
because that's the really important piece that people remember you for.
Perfect. So Kelly, can you share any ways to follow up with you, websites, social media handles, whatever you feel is relevant?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really big on LinkedIn. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's probably a great space for where I post articles and all that good stuff. You can find me at Kelli Binnings or at Build Smart Brands. Also on Instagram with Build Smart Brands. And I'm kind of branching out into like the Pinterest landscape. I'm also, again, part of the creative world that I live in. I'm a photographer as well. So I have a lot of activity happening on Pinterest in terms of boards. So if that's kind of more your thing and you're just looking for maybe mood boards, definitely check me out on Pinterest at Kelli Binnings.
Perfect, Kelly. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.